First of all, I want to say hello to all my good friends in Beth Jacob, Atlanta, to Rabbi Feldman, Rabbi Tendler, Rabbi Foxbrunner, and the incredible congregation that you are, a real sense of Kehillah, and one of the true Kehillahs throughout North America. One of the saddest parts for me of this summer was not being able to spend Teshuva and the weeks, the days leading up to it in Atlanta, but because of the quarantine, it wasn't feasible. And I want to thank the Rabbanim, and I want to thank your shul for the opportunity now, at least to be able to learn together and to share some ideas leading up to Rosh Hashanah, leading up to Yom Kippur. So I'm going to start in a funny place. How many of you have heard of a town by the name of Mount Pleasant, Michigan? Mount Pleasant, Michigan. If none of you have heard of that town, don't blame yourselves. You're pretty normal for not hearing it because there's no reason you should have heard it. But if I had asked you that question, let's say 30 years ago, I take that back. If I'd asked you that question 40 years ago, many of you would have heard the name Mount Pleasant, Michigan. What was it famous for? It was famous for the sulfur baths. So you had physicians all along the East Coast, and you had physicians in the Midwest that would send their congregants, I'm talking like a rabbi, would send their patients, to Mount Pleasant, Michigan to bathe in the sulfur baths, especially if you had people that had arthritis, bursitis, other ailments. What happened to Mount Pleasant? The sulfur baths dried up. You know what happens when the sulfur baths dry up? It stinks. It smells like rotten eggs, putrid. And Mount Pleasant, which had all of these Jews living there, they came from Europe to America. They needed to make a parnasa, a living. This one opened up a haberdashery. This one opened up a general store. This one opened up a restaurant. And they opened up all kinds of retail shops there. And there were a lot of Jews living there. Mount Pleasant's maybe a half an hour from Detroit. And they built a shul. But at this point, it dried up. So the only Jews living in Mount Pleasant is there was a university there. And you had these professors coming in and settling in Mount Pleasant because they had jobs at the university. It wasn't the famous University of Michigan. They weren't Wolverines. It wasn't even the famous university MSU, which was in Lansing, Spartans. No, this was a smaller university. And as the older generation either died or moved south, you had these professors and their families living there. And they said to themselves, and keep in mind, we're talking the 1950s, the 1960s, the 1970s. We're talking, imagine what Rabbi Emanuel Feldman was dealing with in Atlanta. Having a shul with a mechitza, having a shul where they started day school, a Jewish day school, was not a real popular thing. In fact, because in America, post-World War II, there was a massive, massive migration to the suburbs. People were getting out of apartments in the city, wanted to have grass of their own, a backyard of their own, a front yard of their own. And you had suburban, literally tracts and tracts of houses being built all around the circumference of cities throughout America. Well, the Jews were no different than anybody else. And what happened? In the Protestant world, in the Lutheran world, the Methodist world, there was a major pitch. Because at this time, families in America are starting to no longer listen to radio, but to acquire a television. And the family experience is the family together sitting around the TV. And on one of the most clever of the marketing ads you had was coming out of the Lutheran movement, coming out of the Methodist movement. The family that prays together stays together. Remember, we're no longer three generational families, where the grandparents, the parents, and the grandchildren are all living in the same building or in the same block. Now you've got the kids moving out to the suburbs. And you've got Eisenhower building this incredible network of highways. And people are moving to different cities, into the suburbs of different cities. So how do we keep people rooted? The family that prays together stays together. And who picked up on that? The conservative movement. It was the largest, it was the most dynamic force in American Jewry in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. And many people are leaving the European style shul the halachic shul, with the mechitza, and they're going to these suburban centers. They're going to these suburban institutional buildings that are conservative congregations, synagogues, where the family that prays together hopefully is supposed to stay together. And it was no different in Mount Pleasant, Michigan. They wanted to do the same thing. I want to sit next to my husband. I want to sit next to my wife. And they said, we're America. America's a democracy. And in a democracy, the majority rules. And we want to tear down the mechitza. We don't want our wives sitting behind the wall or us sitting on the other side of the wall. We want to sit together. Okay. There was a member of that shul. What his English name was, I don't even know, because he went by his English name. He himself was not that religious a man, but he felt that this was terrible. You had people that built the shul on their sweat and tears. Instead of them having a second automobile, instead of them having a summer house, instead of them going on vacation, they saved up every dollar so they could build a house of God. They could build a shul. And now these Johnny-come-latelys, these professors who think because they have more of an education, they know better, they're going to come in and they're going to undo everything that these European immigrants and their children had created in Mount Pleasant. He felt that was disgusting. He thought it was a total expression of ingratitude. And he said, no, you didn't build this, you didn't create this, because it doesn't suit your fancy. Now you're going to change the mechitza, next month you'll change something else. That's not the respect that you have for history. That's not the respect you have for Judaism. And that's not the respect that you have for the people who your predecessors, who built this institution. And he fought them. And he took them to court. We know him as Baruch Litvin. His daughter is alive today. Jeannie Litvin. She lives in Los Angeles. What his English name, what he went by, I'm not sure. But he became, through this whole process, he himself had an incredible catharsis. He became Baruch Litvin. What was the story with him? He sued in a court of law. And you know what? He won. And they were ticked off. They were really ticked off at him. And they appealed the decision. And they took it to the Michigan State Appellate Court. And they had the decision overturned. Majority rules. He didn't stop there. Apparently there was a law firm with religious sensitivities, that took his case pro bono. And he took it to the Michigan State Supreme Court. So again, he won in the court. They had it overturned and won in the appellate court. He took this all the way to the Michigan State Supreme Court. The Supreme Court of Michigan. And what did he do? As he was growing and learning in his Judaism and discovering, he found out that there were great rabbis on the East Coast, great legal minds, the Oliver Wendell Holmes of the Jewish people. One was a rabbi who had a great yeshiva in Lakewood, New Jersey. His name was Rabbi Aaron Cutler. And he reached out to Rav Aaron Cutler, and Rav Cutler wrote a tshuva, and he sent it to him to be presented to the Michigan State Supreme Court. Obviously, they're going to have to find someone to translate it. And he heard about this Rabbi Moses Feinstein, who we call, of course, Rav Moshe Feinstein, the Posek Hador. And Rav Moshe wrote him a tshuva, again in Lashon Kodesh in Hebrew. And he heard about the great Rabbi Soloveitchik, the great educator, the great master of the generation. And he reached out to Yeshiva University to get contact for this Rabbi Soloveitchik. He reached out to Boston. And the Rav spoke with him. In understanding the case, instead of writing a tshuva in Lashon Kodesh, knowing it would be read by the Supreme Court of the state of Michigan, he sent him an abacus brief in English. The tshuva was in English. Okay? And what I want to explore is some of that tshuva for a very simple reason. You and I, a couple of weeks ago, not just you and I, most Jews across the world started saying every morning and every evening, Kapitel Chav Zayin, Psalm 27, LeDavid, Adoshem Oriv Yishi. It's a fascinating, incredibly helpful psalm that opens up for us much of Jewish prayer. And I'd like to speak about some of the key lines in that psalm. Because one of them Rabbi Soloveitchik used in his abacus brief for the Supreme Court of the state of Michigan, in which, by the way, overturned the appellate court, decided in favor of Baruch Litvin, and they kept the mechitza in Mount Pleasant. Here's what he said. There's a famous verse that you're familiar with. It's about 4 psukim from the end of the psalm. Ki avi v'imi yazvuni, v'adoshem yasveni. What is the word ki? Ki can be translated one of 4 ways. Ki. So many of the Christian translations, and unfortunately many of the Jewish translations, translate it wrong. They said, when my father and my mother abandoned me, it was Hashem who gathered me in, who was my anchor, my root, my source of reality. It's not translated as when. It could be under certain circumstances, but not in this verse. The word ki, kaf aleph, it's translated as even if. Not that David HaMelech's mother and father abandoned him. They did not. Even if my father and my mother were to abandon me, the only reality I have, the only anchor I have in this world is God. God is the one who envelops me, who gathers me, who provides for me. Meaning what? What does that mean? You know, as human beings, we could have the best of intentions, but by definition, our existence is tenuous, it's fickle, it's whimsical. That's the nature of our existence. I'll give you another pasuk that you're all familiar with from the Hallel. David HaMelech, the same King David, says, Kol ha'adam kozev. So literally that gets translated as every person is a liar. That's not what David meant. That's not what he was saying. Kol adam kozev is the same idea. We can have the best of intentions, and there's no one who cares for a person more than a parent cares for a child. Okay? A parent, the sacrifice that a parent does for a child is like no other sacrifice. But with the best of intentions, a human being cannot always fulfill their promises. Today, I'm alive and breathing. Tomorrow, God forbid, I could be 6 foot under. Today, I'm healthy. Tomorrow is a function, God forbid, of a stroke. I'm a vegetable, God forbid. But that is human existence. Think about the Jews in Argentina 20 years ago. These were wealthy, upper middle class people. The peso becomes devalued over a week. Since there was a run on the bank shut down. You couldn't even get your assets out. So yesterday you were worth millions of dollars. Today you're worth nothing because of inflation, hyperinflation. And you know that story again and again. You were invested with Bernie Madoff. You think that you're worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and you wake up to find that you're worth nothing. That is our existence. That is the tenuous, whimsical, fickle nature of our existence. With the best of intentions, with the best of our promises and our commitments, we don't always fulfill those commitments because we can't. It's not always in our control. And that's what he was saying. Even if my father and mother were to abandon me, not that they did, but because they weren't in a position where they can. Vadoshem Yasveni. And he said the following. The notion of Jewish prayer, and we're going to start saying something through the 10 days Aseres Yemei Teshuva that you're all familiar with, because maybe in Beth Jacob you say it every day after davening. Kapitel Kuf Lamed, Psalm 130. Mima'amakim kirasicha Hashem. You know when a person has a real relationship? You know when a person really talks to God? I'm not saying says the words. We always say the words. But it really talks to Hashem. Mima'amakim. From a state of emotional dire straits. That's when we can open up. Meaning what? We all build walls around us. Our wealth, our sense of protecting our family, our sense of control, our sense of health, our sense of friends, our social atmosphere. And we all find comfort and insulation in these walls that we build around ourselves to protect us. from the very existential, inherent vulnerabilities that every human being has. And you know when you really cry out to God, when you talk to God, when you can really be open with yourself and open before God, is when those walls come crumbling down, like the walls of Jericho. When those walls come crumbling down, and then you're exposed, then you're emotionally, psychologically naked, exposed, and raw. Under those circumstances, do you really turn to God? Because you don't have the comfort of life. You don't have the comfort and the psychological comfort that you're in control anymore. Then, what you know is true in theory becomes true emotionally. You realize how raw and exposed you are. Mimama kim kirasicha Hashem. And you also say it in the Hallel. Min hametzar karasika. Only when a person's in dire straits do they actually communicate to God. Do they actually call out or talk to God? What's the point? He said, Rabbi Soloveitchik said to the Michigan Supreme Court, by definition, when you as a family go to pray as a family, when you're sitting with your friends and family, then you're the protector. You're protecting your kids. Or if you're young, you're protected by your parents. And by the way, it doesn't just mean an 8-year-old being protected by mommy and daddy. Sitting with your father who's 70 years old and you're a 40-year-old. There's a certain psychological sense of comfort. We project what we thought, how we saw the world as 4 and 6 and 8-year-olds. We project that as adults. And there's a certain sense of having a foundation, having a cocoon, being insulated, being taken care of. That's not the mentality one has when they pray. When you pray before the Ribono Shel Olam, you are exposed, you are naked, you are vulnerable. You're not protector, and you're not protected by anything else. That's what Jewish prayer is. There's a time for the family that's together, stays together. That's a Shabbos meal. That's a Yom Tov meal. That's a family that learns together. That's a family that goes on vacation together, that observes Yom Tov together. That's not prayer. That's not prayer. Tefillah l'ani ki yatov. I am so vulnerable. I sometimes lie to myself and don't realize it. But when I stand before God and I'm honest with myself, lehit palel, when I analyze myself, when I judge myself, who am I? What am I? How have I disappointed? How have I failed? What have I done well? How have I used the talents that Hashem gave me? And when I'm really being honest before God in prayer, then it's you can't do that. You can't get to that level when you're busy looking after and protecting. When you're with your buddies, you're with your friends, and you're comfortable. A man stands alone before God. That's what Jewish prayer is. And that's why there's a mechitza. We break up the family in tefillah, in davening. We don't daven near our friends. So you'll ask me a very powerful question. If what I'm saying is correct, then we shouldn't be davening with a minyan. We should all be like a monk in Tibet. We should all go up to our own mountaintop and go in what's called bedidus, a bidud, go into quarantine, into isolation, and be alone with God. So why do we daven with the minyan? Why do we come together? Because there's another factor. There's another consideration. One of the kiyumim of tefillah, one of the fulfillments of davening, is to sensitize us to the needs of others. You come together as a community. You hear about the tsaris, the sick in the community, the financially needy in the community, the challenges of the community. You take responsibility for Klal Yisrael. So on the one hand, there's a need to daven as a community because of the sensitivities that it engenders. And the notion that our relationship with God is not just self-centered. It's not just about me. I'm not the axis of the universe. I'm also part of an entity called Klal Yisrael, an entity that's committed to the destiny of humanity, that's God's partner, that's Hashem's covenantal partner, the bris of Sinai. So there's being part of a community and being sensitive to its needs and its responsibilities and its challenges That's why you have to be with a minyan. But at the same time, we're alone. And you know where this manifests itself? You and I don't say one Amidah. We don't daven. We daven twice. Once is an individual. It's me standing before God, alone, scared, open, vulnerable. And right afterwards, it's the community. Not me. It's not me alone. It's not even me and my friends. There's a corporate entity, a singular entity called Klal Yisrael. The Rambam in the Hilchos Tefillah, in the laws of Tefillah, in the Mishnah Torah, what is the Rambam called? Tfilat HaTzibur. The Tfilas HaTzibur. It's one prayer. Whoever the Chazan and whoever the Shliach Tzibur is, it's not their prayer. It's the prayer mouthed on behalf of the collective entity. That's why Rabbi Soloveitchik said the minhag is that we stand like this. The way we would stand during our personal Amidah, that's how we stand for the Chazaras HaShatz, for the Tefillah of the Tzibur. To demonstrate that it's not his prayer, it's a collective prayer of all of us. And that, by the way, is why there's an obligation to say Amen. It's not his prayer. Why do I have to say Amen? To demonstrate that it's a prayer of every one of us. We're all part of that collective tzibur. So there's two things happening in davening. On the one hand, I am alone. I am vulnerable. I'm seriously, introspectively looking at who I am, what I am. I'm not playing the role of protector. There's no one else that's going to protect me. Only Hashem Yasfeini. That's the tefillah of the Yachid. And then there's this need to be sensitive to the needs and to the challenges facing Am Yisrael, of which I am a part of. Every Jew has two personalities. You and I are not schizophrenic, but by definition, we lead a dialectical existence. We lead a singular, unique existence, and we are part of the covenantal community, the B'nai Bris. Okay? I just use it, that idea that I just said, it manifests itself in so many ways and places. That's why, for instance, you know what the halacha is? We don't name a baby boy until the bris, until there's a minyan there. We don't name a baby girl until the Kriyas HaTorah, until there's a minyan. Why? Because your name is what makes you unique, distinct, and special. Your name makes you you. It makes you unique. You can't be a unique, distinct individual until you become part of the tzibur, until you become part of Klal Yisrael. That's why what's Kriyas HaTorah? Kriyas HaTorah is the whole nation coming together, reenacting Ma'amad Har Sinai. It's a reenactment of the Har Sinai experience. Until you become part of the people of the nation, until you become part of the collective, the covenantal community, you're not an individual. What's the point? We lead a dual existence. On the one hand, we are alone before God. On the other hand, we're part of Klal Yisrael. But that explains why it's so integral, why the mechitza is so profoundly important, because it defines what Jewish prayer is. Jewish prayer is mimama kim karasich Hashem, mina meitza karasika. Even if I'm doing fine financially and my health is perfect and my kids are doing well, existentially, I am in a state of mimama kim, emotional dire straits. That's the first idea. The second idea in Psalm 27, Kapitel Chav Zayin, it's a famous, what makes it, in general, what makes anything famous? Oh, you know why it's famous? Because I know. If I know about it, it must be famous, right? No. This is famous for a different reason. Because it's a song. Once you take a pasuk and everybody knows the song, then it's famous. Because we all know it. Acha sha'alti me'es Hashem, osa vakesh. David HaMelech says in Psalm 27, there's one thing I ask of God. What's that one thing? Very strange. Shifti beveis Hashem, kol yemei chayai, lachasos b'noam Hashem. I want to be shifti beveis Hashem. I want to be a resident, a toshav. Now, why is that strange? Because there's two words in the pasuk I left out, the last two words. Ulevaker behechalo. I want to be someone who's a resident, who is here, who's a regular. It's my home. There was no Beis HaMikdash in David's time because he laid the foundations for it. His son Shlomo built it. So he's referring to a shul. He's referring to a Beis HaMedrash. That's where I want to feel that that's my home. But then the last two words, what's ulevaker behechalo? I want to be a guest of mivaker, a guest in his sanctuary. like a first-time visitor. Question for you. My question for you is this. That's an oxymoron. You're either a toshav or you're a mavaker. A guest is someone who waits to be brought into the inner chamber. A guest is someone who waits to drink or waits to eat till the food is provided. A toshav, hey, he's at home. He's one of their family. A toshav is the opposite of a mivaker, of a guest. So, and by the way, what's one thing? That's two things. Shifti b'veis Hashem, I want to live in the house of God, and mivaker b'echalo. What are you? Are you a toshav or are you a mivaker? So the assumption of my question is wrong. I just asked a question that assumed that it's binary. You're either a resident, a regular, a member of the family, it's your home, or you're a guest, a stranger. No. It's not binary. It's not like, certain things in life are binary. You're either a liberal or a conservative. You're not both. You're either pro-life or pro-choice. You're not both. Okay? You're either like Georgia Tech or the University of Georgia. Not both. Okay? What's going on here? This is a dialectical existence. What do I mean by a dialectical existence? The two poles. It's not mutually exclusive. They are not mutually exclusive. We lead this dialectical existence where we live in both worlds, where we oscillate and live in both worlds. Meaning what? What was David HaMelech asking God? What was David HaMelech teaching us about tefillah, about davening, about prayer? You and I should not be like one of those people who shows up, dreads Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. You're not comfortable in that building. You're not comfortable with the people. You're not comfortable holding the siddur. You don't know how to read from right to left, left to right. You don't know the words. You don't know when to stand up, when to sit down. That's not who we should be. When we're in the Beis HaMedrash, Abaye and Rav are taking us by the hand. And they're helping us swim in the Yam HaTalmud, the Sea of the Talmud. And if we get to choppy waters, so Rashi and the Rambam help us, or Rabbeinu Tam helps us. We want to feel that we're at home, wrestling and struggling with the ideas of our Masorah, of our tradition. That's who we are, okay? In shul, you want to feel that God's house is your house. The house that we have two homes. They're my residence. I have the residence that I live in at home, and my second residence is Beth Jacob. Because you know why? That's where I feel that I can take care of the needs of the community, that I can talk to God, that I can pour my heart out to God, that I can share with Him my aspirations and my dreams, my fears, my anxieties. That is my house. Shifti b'veis Hashem. The problem is, if it's your home, the problem is, this is not Monday Night Football, folks. Hey, get me the pretzels and the six-pack. I'll kick off my shoes, put them up, start with the drinks and the beer, and put on a football game and screaming at the player. No. The problem when you are so comfortable and familiar that you end up being callous and insensitive. At the same time I'm shifty b'veis Hashem, at the very same time I'm also mevaker. There's a sense of respect. There's a sense of reverence. Respect and reverence. It's as if it's the first time. This is the house of the infinite. This is the place that I have the gift, the incredible gift to stand face to face and engage and analyze myself and pour my heart out to my sustainer, to my maker. But I'm in a state of reverence. Rabbi Akiva's famous prayer that we're going to be saying over the Saras Yemei Teshuva, Avinu Malkeinu. Rabbi Akiva could have said Avinu, and he could have said Malkeinu, but he didn't do that. He said Avinu and Malkeinu. Avinu is love, intimacy. It's our Father. At the same time, he's Malkeinu. He's the master. He's the king. There's reverence, there's respect, there's protocol. How can you be in love and intimate and at the same time respect and reverence? That's a dialectic. It's not binary. We live in both worlds. A healthy Jew is a Jew that views God as his beloved, like in Shir Hashirim, and you talk b'lashon nochach in second person, ata, and at the same time, he's melech ha'olam. You stand with respect and reverence with his great gift of being able to stand before the Almighty. And that's the idea of being a shifti b'veis Hashem and being mivaker b'heichalo. That's what it teaches us. And the third point I'm going to make from Psalm 27 is the very last line. Kaveh el Adoshem, chazak v'yametz libecha v'kaveh el Adoshem. Very hard to translate. Kaveh is like the word from, like the tikva. What is that? My yearning, my hope, my anticipation and aspiration is what? Is Hashem. Is to be in His presence. When are you in the presence of Hashem? When you, hopefully all the time, but for sure when you learn His Torah, when you wrestle with His ideas, and when you talk to Him, tefillah, davening, when you pour your heart out to Him, when you engage Him, when you think about how am I going to be a better Jew and a better human being today? At Mincha, when you look back after the workday and you take a retrospect, who did I hurt today? Who did I let down today? What did I fail to do today? It's a tikva, where our yearning and our anticipation is there. We're davening to Hashem. What does it say? Chazak v'yametz libecha. Strengthen and make sure that your heart is strong. Your heart meaning the seat of the emotion. Your heart also, leiv can also mean the intellect, the mind, the seat of the intellect. You have to be mechazik that. V'kaveh al Hashem. And then again, go and continue and go back to daven. Go anticipate, yearn for Hashem. What does that mean? Davening, tefillah, is very difficult. It's difficult on many levels. It's not easy to open ourselves up. It's not easy to be honest with ourselves. So the Gemara in Brachos on this verse says, Arba tzrichen chizuk. There are four phenomena in life that require constant diligence. Constant chizuk means strengthening ourselves and recommitting ourselves and being diligent. There's a fascinating minhag that Rabbi Soloveitchik spoke about on this last verse of our psalm and also on the Gemara in Brachos. He said there's a minhag the Jews have to end off the davening with Adon Olam. Why? Because if you look in the Siddur, that's how davening starts. One of the first things you say before you ever get to shul, early in the morning, is Adon Olam. Acharei kichos hakol. When it's all said and done, you go back and start all over again, Adon Olam. Why? Because it needs chizuk. Kaveh el Hashem. After you've davened, chazak v'yametz libecha, and again, v'kaveh el Hashem. Your relationship with God is a constant. It's not a one-time thing. It's not casual. It's something that we do at least 3 times a day. It's something that we're always assessing who we are, what our values are, what our needs are, and if God gives us those needs, what we will do with them. There's a constant requirement to go back and stand before our sustainer, stand before our creator, in tefillah. It's not the once in a while phenomena. That's what makes it so difficult. It's not easy davening. Those of you who've learned Bava Kama is not easy. It deals with torts and damages. Much easier than to know the Siddur. The Siddur is a very difficult topic of study. It's very complex. It's very nuanced. And it takes you to places in your relationship with the truth, in your relationship with reality, in your relationship with God, that are tough places to go. Scary places to go. But it transforms you. Chazak v'yametz libecha. It makes you a different Jew. It makes you a different person, a different spouse. It makes you a different professional. But it requires constant diligence. That's not true of every mitzvah. Once you've taken the lulav and esrog, you fulfilled the mitzvah. There's certain mitzvahs, you do it, you put the mezuzah up in your door, okay. You've done the mitzvah. Not with davening. And that's why davening requires constant, not only repetition, but constant work. That's the third idea. I just want to end off with something we're going to do on Rosh Hashanah. And that, of course, is Tekiyah Shofar. Now, it's interesting, in Parshas Pinchas, it says, Yom Teruah Yiyeh Lachem. It's a day of the Teruah. I understand There's two types of notes. There's a teruah, and the three possibilities of what is the ideal teruah. Is it the way a baby cries? A teruah, like a staccato notes? The Chasam Sofer, whose tradition was Frankfurt am Main, and it's true with the Yemenites. You know how they used to do a teruah? Not the staccato notes that the Eastern Europeans do. They go, it sounds much more like a baby crying, as opposed to da-da-da-da-da-da-da. But what's that staccato, that quick, that's the herky jerk of how a baby cries, a young kid cries. Or it's the shvarim. What's shvarim? It's the moaning or groaning of an adult. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Or it's shivarim teruah. It's the process. First you start as an adult trying to compose yourself, hold yourself back, and then you totally break down. Ooh, 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 do 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 do, or do 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 do. It's that breaking down of this person, but it's a cry. If you look in Parshas Baaloscha, when do you blow the teruah? At a time of anxiety, time of war, time of famine, time of disease, a time of insecurity. Rosh Hashanah's Judgment Day. No one wants to stand before God on Judgment Day and be judged. No one wants to do that. What's a tekiah? Tekiah is not the emotion, what we call the Yetzer Hara, the emotions. No, it's the intellect. There's two crucial halachas of a tekiah. It is for the same duration. It has to be minimally the same duration, if not more, than whatever the teruah is, whether the teruah is the teruah, the shvarim, or the shvarim teruah. And it can never have any oscillation. One consistent tone. Whether you hit a C+, whether it's an A-, one tone. No oscillation. What's the idea there? The tekiah is intellect. And there's a halacha. A tekiah can be by itself, like you know from Parshas Baaloscha. If Moshe Rabbeinu was going to be teaching a new area of the Torah to the scholars, they blew the one tekiah. If it's bringing the whole nation together to learn, not just the scholars, but now everyone has to learn it, two tekiyahs. But it's always a tekiah, because it's the intellect. It's chachma, it's wisdom, it's objective, one consistent note. David, if you can come in here, what is the teruah? A teruah always has to be enveloped with a tekiah before and a tekiah afterwards. With a tekiah before and a tekiah afterwards. Why? Because the emotions, the Yetzer Hara, it always has to be sublimated and channeled. Think about the ego, or think about other emotions. If it's not channeled and sublimated by chachma, by the Yetzer Tov, by the intellect, it could go wild. So there's always, before and after every teruah, lefanel and achareh, it's always sandwiched in by a tekiah. Now, what is Yom Teruah, the day of Teruah? We try on Rosh Hashanah. It's the most sublime prayer of the year. There was a Lutheran anti-Semite. He was a famous theologian, a Protestant theologian in Germany. His name was Rudolf Otto, an anti-Semite. But he wrote a book called The Idea of the Holy. And in his book, The Idea of the Holy, he writes, he studied the liturgy, the prayers of multiple religions, of Catholicism, of different Lutheran groups, of different groups to the east. He said he's never found anything more powerful and sublime than the Musaf of Rosh Hashanah. What do we do after each of the three themes of the Musaf of Rosh Hashanah? After the Malchios, Zichronos, and Shofros? We end them off by Yom Teruah, by crying before God. Sometimes you can communicate the most sublime, sophisticated ideas, organized, developed, one step, A precedes B, precedes C. When it's all said and done, we pour our heart out to God. Because we know we failed ourselves, we failed our friends, we failed our loved ones, and we failed God. And no one wants to stand in judgment before God. No one wants to have to stand before God on Judgment Day. And it's a Yom Teruah. It's a day of crying. It's a day where we pour our heart out to God. That's one idea. And the last idea comes from the Rambam. That's us crying to God. That's our shofar. The shofar at the same time is a wake-up call. You know what happens? Someone tries to, hey, get out of it, wake up. And you don't want to hear it. You suppress it, you deny it. Like the mother of Sisera, the whole minhag of 100 shofar sounds. According to Torah law, we could fulfill it with 30. The 3 sets of 3. Tekiah, teruah, tekiah 3 times is 9. Tekiah, shvarim, tekiah 3 times is another 9. That's 18. Tekiah, shvarim, teruah, tekiah 3 times is 12. 3 times 4. So 18 and 12 is 30. But we do it 100 times. Why? Because it's like Sisera's mother. She knew there was something very, very wrong. She knew that her son should have come home. Chatzor in the northern Galilee is not that far from Mount Tabor. How come he's not coming home? He'd never lost a battle in his life, and she was so confident in him coming home. And she makes all kinds of justifications and rationalizations. Oh, they're taking the Jewish girls and they're violating. They're having the time of their life abusing the Jewish girls. Oh, the booty is so much. There's so much wealth they've taken, the spoils of war. They had to find donkeys, and they had to find wagons, and they had to find camels and horses, and that's what's taking so long. And day after day after day, she hears no word from him. She hears nothing from him, and she knows there's something wrong. And even though her friends come, the other women of the aristocracy, and they make all kinds of excuses, the longer this thing goes, the less the justifications, the less the rationalizations, the less the defenses work. That's the shofar. You hear it once, you squelch it, you suppress it. You hear it a second time, you make an excuse. It's a wake-up call. Wake up! Uru yeshenim mishenaschem, the Rambam says. Those of us who are asleep in life. The sun is up, the lights are on, and we're walking through life asleep. And it's a wake-up call. It's a terrible wake-up call. And we don't want to hear it. And we deny it. But it keeps coming back again and again. And slowly but surely, it chisels us down. It wears us down. Until slowly but surely, we acknowledge it. And we break. And we admit. And that's the process of Teshuva. So we ended off with 2 ideas in the shofar. You and I calling to God, and the shofar being a wake-up call to us. And before that, we had a few ideas in what Kapitel Chaf Zayin, which holds us by the hand as we go through Elul and we go through Tishrei together. In the profound insights it gives us into the nature of Tefillah. I want to thank you. I want to thank the Rabbanim, Rabbi Feldman, Rabbi Foxburner, Rabbi Tendler. And I want to wish all of my friends at Beth Jacob, in Gans Klal Yisrael, that 5781, please Hashem, it'll be the year we come out of COVID. It should be the year of the Mashiach. It should be a year where not only the UAE starts to acknowledge Am Yisrael and its role in humanity, but Kol Boya Olam. Because the world needs the values of the Torah. In our country, the kind of values that we're seeing emerging in our country are very dangerous. And it's ruining and poisoning all sense of ethics and morality, all sense of decency, and all notion that there's a God who runs this world. And America needs healing. America needs healing from this despicable, corrupt sickness that is pervading our society. In the name of equality, in the name of ethics, they're burning and destroying everything. And please, God, that we, the Jewish people, come to see the truth and the substance and the depth of our Torah, what God has given us, and that humanity wakes up and leads a life of reality, a life of substance, a life of decency. There's a lot to pray for this coming year. And there's a lot that we have to do to be Hashem's partner, to make this world a better people, a better place, to make our people whole and to make humanity whole. A ksiva v'chasima tova and a good gebench to yor.